Hello and welcome to the February edition of Community Connect. This month's guest is the director of the Marshall-Lyon County Library, Michele Leininger. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. As always, we'll kind of recap the previous month of January. A lot of things were starting to reopen, which is always good news. So it's going to touch on a few things. Just last week, the elementary schools at the Marshall Public Schools have reopened. So that's good news. Good to see some of the younger kids back at it full-time at the schools. Tiger and Mustang sports are both back. Of course, can't see them in person, can't see the Mustangs in person. The Tigers are limited just the parents, but for those tech-savvy folks, you can certainly stream, which has been a very common thing here during the pandemic. The Alaska Anchorage Ice Dogs have been playing at the Red Baron Arena, which is pretty exciting. And I actually went to the game last Saturday with my family, and kind of a nice deal for Marshall and something for people to do. Michele, have you been to a game yet?
I have not yet, but I am looking forward to getting to go.
Yeah. I mean, tickets are pretty hot. I wanted to go a couple Saturdays ago. I waited until Saturday morning to get a ticket, and by the time I went on there, it was too late. But yeah.
Too bad for you, but I'm glad for them.
Yes, absolutely. It was bad. It was a bad weather day anyway. We went to the museum coincidentally instead, which was actually a really cool thing to go to. I'll get to that in just a second. Actually, that's my next bullet point is the Lyon County Museum. So if you haven't been to the Lyon County Museum, as I just mentioned to Michele, 2 Saturdays ago I went with the family in the second floor exhibit, which is a theme from Lyon County from World War II to current, is phenomenal and is worth the price of admission, which is a donation to the museum anyway. But if you haven't been to the museum, it is worth it. Have you been to the museum? Did you see it yet?
I haven't since the pandemic started, but I was excited to see them open again and get to go.
Jennifer has done a really amazing job. Of course, also in January, they had the Christmas tree display. So if you drove by on Lyon Street past the library at all over the month of January and wondering why it's all Christmassy, that's why, because they had about 10 trees inside.
Actually, I think it was 13. They got a nice response this year.
Yeah, and they voted. The results came out this week. So if you haven't seen the results, of course, check out the Lyon County Museum Facebook page. So kudos to Jennifer and her volunteers over there for really putting on a really nice display. Additionally, the movie theater is back and running. My wife, actually the 4 of us again, went to Wonder Woman 84. It was a great movie. I suggest seeing it. I'm going to give props out to 2 of the guys who are here running the cameras here today, Alex and Ryan, who come out on public access TV called the Popcorn Bucket List. And I've mentioned this before. It is the modern day version of Siskel and Ebert. So thanks to those guys for talking about the movies at the theater, because it's well worth it. And then also one event that hasn't stopped since the pandemic, and kudos to Michele and her team. Every single Thursday night is Thursday night trivia at the Marshall-Lyon County Library. And they have a different theme. It's only for a half hour, so you're not committed to a long time frame. And some of the themes have been tea, it's been pets, there's been a Christmas theme, there's been a Halloween theme, there's been so many, there's been themes on there that I don't even know what it is. I mean, they're just that creative over there, so thanks to Michele and her team, which gets me to our guest today. And again, Michele, thanks for being here. So Michele has been working at libraries since 1991. She received her MLS in 1994, PhD in 2014, both from the University of Pittsburgh. Prior to coming to Minnesota, she worked at libraries in North Dakota, Pennsylvania, New York, Iowa, and Washington. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being in Marshall.
Yeah, I love Marshall.
Good. Let's keep you here. So, as always, we'll ask a set of questions, and so, the pandemic hit in March of 2020. It's been almost a year. What did the library do to continue providing services? Obviously, you've been open, and probably one of the few places that's been open steadily. But let's talk about some of those services that you didn't stop.
Right. So just to think back, it seems like it was decades ago, but it was actually just really in February when we first heard about the first case in the United States. And it wasn't long after that where Minnesota had its first case. We had a bit of luck, and it sounds odd to call it luck, but we deliver regularly to assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and things like that. And actually, at the end of February, early March, they had their own little mini pandemic with the flu. There was an outbreak, so they had closed the buildings to anybody from the outside. So we got to practice before the real pandemic hit, no contact services. They did not want to stop those services, and so it's great. They all have vestibules, so they would gather the books and materials, they would put them in the vestibule, we would pick them up, drop the others, leave the building, then their staff would come in and get them. So as soon as the pandemic hit, we thought, well, we can do this with daycares, for example, and our homebound. We won't have to stop all the deliveries we do out all across the county. So right away we thought, well, why don't we expand that if people are fearful or they have a health condition where they're worried about coming out but they want to continue to use the library. We expanded our homebound. And so really at its zenith, we've been delivering to about 40 people throughout the county. And that ebbs and flows as people have gotten sick or the holidays came around. So those were the major things that we did. We did end up closing most of the building, not all of the building. You can still come in. I vividly remember it, March 23rd. And during that time, right before then, we opened up a dialogue with the city and talked about how we could stay open if they felt that we were essential services. We, of course, felt we were an essential service. And especially as kids were home, we thought that we would be a good fit to stay open. So really until May 29th, you couldn't get into the main part of the building, but you could come in, pick up materials, use our Wi-Fi, read the newspaper. And if you had some kind of an emergency, unemployment, for example, you needed to use a computer, we had our computer lab available. So we did continue through that time, and I think there was probably about a 2-week period where we may have been one of the only libraries that was fully open in the state of Minnesota, which we're pretty proud of.
Absolutely, and it was very well utilized.
It has been.
Certainly an essential service. So what's changed since then, since it started?
Since we had to kind of shrink a little bit. So we were very excited for June 1st because we got to open the whole building back up. And we did do that with some changes that we had to. Of course, everybody eventually had to start wearing a mask. But the other thing is one of my main jobs during this time has been reading a lot of scientific studies and what all the experts were saying. And so the board right away thought, we should limit time in the building. So we did have to limit about 30 minutes, but we also were excited to get to open the children's library up again. It is by appointment, but it did allow families to get back into that space and pick their own, books and movies and things like that. That, of course, as librarians, we enjoyed the time where people couldn't browse because we got to have conversations about books with people, which we love to do. So, this is the things that I love to read. Can you help me find, I need about 5 books for a month, so can you help me find more books? So, but it's great to have people back in the building and getting to browse our collection again.
Sure. Let's talk a little about, you kind of touched on the next question. So a time limit in the building, and you need to make an appointment to browse in the children's library. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. We've continued to do that. We did get to open in June, and every meeting the board has conversations about, is there any portion of this that we can open back up? Are there things that we need to stop doing because the numbers are high? And I'm happy to say we've been at our steady since last June. The reason, again, is reading all of those studies that says really even with a mask, the more limited your time in people who you don't regularly are around, the better chance you have of not catching anything in case one of you are asymptomatic and have something. So we had discussed maybe letting people in the building more, not quite ready to do it, and then we started hearing about all these mutations and variants that are a lot easier to catch. And again, the studies I was reading said really more limited time needs to be necessary for that. So we've stuck to the 30 minutes. And as we all know, it's hard to social distance kids.
Right.
And it's hard to social distance even families. You see somebody you know, you're both in the children's area. It's really easy to forget that you're so happy to see everybody that you're starting to mix people who probably shouldn't. So at least for right now, we do require that. One of the things that I didn't mention that we did change but has really helped that limited time is in July, actually using CARES Act money, we were able to install a drive-up window. So now you can place things on hold through our catalog, or you can give us a call and we're happy to pull materials, and then you can come through our drive-through window. Right now it's open 4 to 5:30, 5 days a week. And on Saturdays, it's open 9 to noon. And everything that we've done, we've tried to help people be really successful with these limitations. So to help you spend less time in the building. Or again, if you're very sick and you, or have a condition that you might get more sick if you caught it, again, this is a chance for you to still use the library in some fashion. So
Sure.
very excited about that.
Absolutely. So over the last year, I also go on Marshall Radio once a week, and I like to highlight some of the things for the upcoming week. And there's always something from the library. I want to highlight a couple of them. The drive-in movie theaters, the Thursday night trivia, and I have seen even like a game show or like little games that you can do online, word search and all these other cool things. Let's talk about the programs that sometimes get overlooked because you think of the Marshall Library, you just think of books, but there's just so many more things you're providing. Let's touch on a few of those programs.
Right, that's been the hard thing for both our patrons and our staff. We love doing programs. We love having people come into the library, and unfortunately, that's not been the case. So we did try to find programs that we could do either online or could be I'll say asynchronous, meaning that we tape it like this show, and then it gets posted, and then people can watch it at their leisure. Story times are a good example of that. Again, hard to social distance 3 and 4-year-olds. So how do we still give them the story time experience? Mary Beth has been fabulous and was really game right away. She said, well, I've never done this before, but let's do it. So she and Paula, as our camera crew, have been filming, I think, really since last spring. And right now we put out 2, one for the younger baby toddler set and then one for the preschool set. And those get quite a few views, and I believe they're on Studio One's library channel, or on their channel on our library playlist. But we have done some live things. You mentioned trivia. We have a book club that still meets via Zoom once a month on Saturdays. We participated in a book club that happens quarterly at the state level. It's called One Book, One Minnesota. And again, we participated in the statewide book club, but then we've also had our own separate book club. We were just getting ready to do some programming in cooperation with the Adult Community Center. And of course, we had to stop it. They closed for a while, but now that they're back open, we're looking at maybe launching another book club that would be with some of their staff as well. We have our teen groups that have never stopped. They now meet on something called Discord, and the really popular one has been Dungeons and Dragons. And they meet every Tuesday and Thursday after school. And then we also have a writing group that meets. We used to meet in person, and now we meet on Wednesdays. If you're interested in any of those live programs, you can go to our website on our events calendar. So those are some of them. You mentioned the drive-in movie theater. We keep hoping that it's going to be a mild winter, so we can actually not have to wait till June, but we might be able to start in May with some movies. That was actually bought with money from the legacy from the state that we get in Plum Creek, and Plum Creek purchased it, and so now all the libraries in Plum Creek have access to that. So that's really been a lot of fun. We've also seen a sharp increase in the number of people who are reading. Reading has been a great escape for many kids, adults, wide variety. So we've tried to up our game a little bit on our reading challenges. So right now we have a winter reading challenge going on. You can call us and get signed up. You don't even have to come into the library, or you can go online yourself and sign yourself up. And then we have a year-long reading challenge, that lots of people like to do. They want to challenge themselves to read a wider variety of books. But our goal this year is to try to have some kind of reading challenge each month.
Sure.
And we give away small little prizes and things like that. In fact, I believe we've given away one of your coupon books
absolutely.
before, which was the person was very excited
Yep.
to get. So, yeah, we have not expanded, but really just changed up the type of programming we're doing.
Sure. You mentioned the new drive-through, which is a new service that you're providing. So what else are you providing that might be new that our watchers aren't even aware of?
Sure. The one I mentioned that we're excited about is now that if people can't come in and browse, they get to call us and talk about books, and we get to recommend great titles to read. But in order to be, even if you're coming into the library, you want to be as efficient as possible, just like going to the grocery store. You're faster if you have a list. So we have really changed up our displays. And in 2020, we actually saw a sharp increase in the number of books that checked out from our displays rather than the whole collection. So we know that that's working. So we're trying to help what we call the browser. People who aren't quite sure what they want to read, but they want to come in and browse the shelves. By putting up displays, we've made smaller little collections for them to look at. So again, they're much more successful at that 30-minute break. Of course, the drive-up window is one. For kids, we actually, if you've driven along the side of our library, along, I believe that's Saratoga, you'll see some posts in the ground with big plywood boards. If you're on the sidewalk side, that's actually a story walk. And so we purchased large picture book. They're huge. They're about this size. And then we put the story up there. So as you're walking, taking your walk around the neighborhood, you can walk by.
Sure.
And that's been pretty successful. And so I'll put a call out. We would love to, we only put that up. It's not overly attractive, but there are nicer ways, if you will, to display those. And we're hoping that we can find either a 4-H club or maybe a Eagle Scout who's looking for a project. And we would love this spring or summer to put up a more permanent one of that. And I think the last thing I'll talk about is something that we had already started prior to the pandemic, and it just dovetailed for us with the pandemic, and that's something we call Library of Amusements. If you've used library for a long time, you know we've always had cake pans, we've always had puzzles for preschoolers, but in the last 2 years we've started to expand that. So we now have I believe it's well over 200 puzzles now for adults, anywhere from 300 pieces all the way up to a couple thousand. We just purchased older children's puzzles, so anywhere from 48 pieces up to 100 pieces. We also have a toy and game library, from toys for babies all the way up to family games and things like that. And because we were doing this even before the pandemic, we know that germs can be spread through toys. We already had a protocol in place to sanitize everything that was coming back, so we've just continued to do that. And so we put it under an umbrella called Library of Amusements. A couple things that we're excited about that are going to come out soon, probably this week or early next week. We have just purchased a platform called Creative Bug, and it's put out by Joanne Fabrics and has many, many videos on how to do a wide variety of arts and crafts. And they even have some STEM programming on there for kids. So we've purchased that, and we're excited to get that rolled out. Related to that, once a month we've been doing what we call Take and Make. So this month is Valentine's Day. You can stop and pick up a little bag with all the supplies, take it home, and make our project,
Sure,
instead of doing it in a program in the building. The last thing I'll mention is, as part of Library Amusements, we're getting ready to roll out something we call Binge Boxes. So we have come up with some themes for movies, and it'll be anywhere from 4 to 6 movies along a theme. So it could be all baseball movies, it could be Steven Spielberg movies, and you can check out that binge box for the weekend, and your family now has 4 to 6 movies without having to browse the whole collection. Again, ways to help people be really successful, like getting what they want, but then not having to stay a long time.
Sure, that's awesome. So obviously we all want the pandemic to get over as fast as we can. Numbers are down, thankfully. What services, do you anticipate any of these new services going away, or do you think this is going to be more permanent now?
I think it'll probably be a combination, but the nice thing, and I hate to call it a nice thing, but maybe a silver lining,
Right.
with this pandemic, with there being such a long break between how people have thought about services in the past versus now how they think about them, it gives us an opportunity to review all of that. And especially in libraries, we want that to be customer driven. Do we have the right hours? You know, even when we can open back up to full hours, are they the right ones?
Sure.
Does homebound want to continue? Should homebound, instead of being a permanent thing, could it be temporary? When the weather's bad, maybe we have people who normally can get out, but if we have a winter like we did 3 years ago, maybe they want to be homebound for those 4 or 5 months, and then they want to come off of homebound and come use the library again. So I see a lot of flexibility in how we offer these type of services, and I also see as long as customers use them, I don't see them going away.
Good.
Particularly since we invested in it, the drive-up window. The hours may change a little bit, but we've had really good success with that. Hopefully we'll have more success
Right.
with it. So things like that I don't actually see going away.
Good. Well, wow. Lots of information from the Marshall-Lyon County Library. A lot of services Michele touched on obviously can be found on their website, and they have a very active Facebook page too. So, well, good. Lots of information. Thanks again for being here. Let's just kind of touch on a few things that we can expect in February in and around Marshall. The 2021 Mustang Ice Classic is scheduled for next week, in February 13th through the 15th. 15th is actually a Monday. That's President's Day. So that's why they're actually having it from a Saturday through a Sunday. The difference this year, as a lot of events are, there's going to be virtual. So all you have to do is just find like a frozen lake and do your ice fishing then. So
After this weekend, most of them will be frozen.
that won't be an issue after this upcoming weekend. You're absolutely right. So the registrations and submissions we made through something called a Fish Donkey app. Go to smsualumni.com/Mustang Ice Classic for more details. Winter Rock and Ice through Community Services is coming up on President's Day. Of course, this is a good opportunity for the kiddos to get out and do some skating over at the Red Baron Arena. 4 different time frames for an hour: 12 o'clock, 1:15, 2:30, and 3:45. You can register on Community Services. And the theme, I should mention, is Wild and Wacky Hair. The 2021 Marshall Radio Diamonds on Ice Ice Bridal Extravaganza is just around the corner. If you're a bride-to-be, they can't wait to see you on February 21st. It's going to be at the Mercantile right next to Bella Cucina from 11:30 to 2:30. This year's event must have ticketed times to attend due to capacity reasons. You and your guests must be registered to be admitted to the show. So kind of it's good to see some of these expos kind of happening like that.
Absolutely.
One couple chamber things I wanted to kind of touch on. We are returning our egg business event February 23rd. This was actually the one that's scheduled for February 23rd was supposed to be last March, so we've been on a long hiatus. We have Alan Dietz with Dietz Heritage Farm and Paul Lanou with Minnesota West, who they're 2 local farmers. They're going to be talking about everything they juggle. They both, Alan works for SDSU and Brookings, and Paul actually works for Minnesota West, but they just juggle so much, and it's going to be kind of a neat to see, to hear from these 2 young farmers what farm life is like today compared to farm life of what we grew up in the 70s and 80s. Lastly, Michele touched on this. This is our 2021 coupon book. They are out and they are ready. You can stop by the chamber office. You can also, a lot of the groups, the school groups and nonprofits are again helping sell these. And then for any nonprofit that does help sell, they get to keep $5 for every book. So it is a great deal. But it is $30 for a book, and there's just thousands of dollars of savings. So it's well worth it. And one new thing this year, you can do this digitally. So if you're one of those folks that can use it get these at home or in your glove box, you can download the Marshall, Minnesota app, and you can purchase it on your phone. And all you got to do is just show the coupon off of your phone when you go in. So nice deal there.
Very nice.
So with that, I think we are finished today for the February episode. So Michele, thanks so much for being the guest, and thanks for all the information. You were just a wealth of information when it comes to the Marshall-Lyon County Library. And it's just not her. She's got a great team over at the Marshall-Lyon County Library. If you go to the website, you can see the staff. There is just so much talent, and they have a great board of directors too. So all these updates we kind of touched on today can be found on our website, marshallmn.org. Visit marshallmn.com. It has some more of the touristy type of things to do in town. Again, thanks for tuning in to the February edition. Next month, in March, we have the new general manager of Marshall Municipal Utilities is going to be our guest, David Shelkoff. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, David. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in March.